Hello, good evening and welcome. But before we start, I want to say a big thank you to the Akropong Kronti Division for awarding me a citation, but it was more in recognition of the work being done on PM Express. So you, the viewers, have appreciated the show, and through that, we got an award. It was our first award, so I think congratulations to all of us. But it is fairly common to see young men pushing open trucks and carts filled with various parts of electronic appliances that are no longer used. Most of these scrap parts end up in Agboblushi, a wasteland of smoke and rubble, nicknamed Sodom and Gomorrah by the locals. Plastic parts, wires, and pieces of metal and glass lie strewed across the terrain, alongside more immediately recognizable household objects like televisions and refrigerators. And the air is thick with the harsh smell of burning plastic and foul sewage gases drifting in from heavily polluted Odo River. Men and boys wander these bleak landscape in search of anything they can salvage and resell. Agboblushi is also famous for its market, a hustling, bustling center trade for both the rich and the poor. Hoteliers purchase fresh produce in close proximity to the e-waste furnace of Ghana. I've had to paint this picture just so that you realize we are all at risk regardless of our social standing. We have just discovered that not even newborn babies are safe, as poisoning effect of e-waste have been revealed to contaminate breast milk. What I want to know is, what can we do about e-waste and its effects? My name is Nana Ansakwa, and this is PM Express. When we come back, I'll introduce my guest. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the show. And today we are discussing e-waste disposal. Is it a menace yet? Is it becoming a menace? Is it dangerous? Is it not? Are we panicking for nothing? Or indeed, there is a cause for alarm looming in the background? Let me introduce my guest. To my extreme left is Lambert Fabelon, Director, Manufacturing Industry Department at EPA. Welcome, sir. And then to my immediate left is Dr. Kwejo Ansong Asante, who's a Senior Scientist at CSIR. They're here to educate us. Now, first of all, I want to start by finding out what is e-waste. Because, I mean, if you're in Ghana, there's nothing like e-waste. I mean, you have televisions that your grandfather used and you used, and you're probably going to pass it on over to your son to use. So, I mean, when they say e-waste, I'll start with you, Lambert. What is e-waste?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think today's offers an opportunity for us to inform ourselves. Something probably we'll be hearing and not knowing what it is. Mm-hmm. Electronic waste, as we normally say, or that is, waste electronic and electrical equipment, as we normally put it, any equipment that respond to power in its use. That anything that when you connect to power and then you put it on, I'm just looking at a simplistic way, is able to function and give you what you want. That is any electronic material that, if it is functioning, we call it an electronic and electrical equipment. When it stops to function, once it is not functional, we term it as waste. Now, it's become very interesting that what is almost at its end of life has now also been classified as waste. Most of the items that we are dealing with are computers, televisions, air conditioners, the mobile phones, the iPad I'm sitting here with and you are using, the radio transmission systems, TV transmission systems, the, satellite transmissions and other things that we have. All are electronic gadgets. the microwave we have, the blender, the electric iron, these are all electronic and electrical equipment because they respond to power in their functioning. When they can no longer respond to power one way or other because there's a fault or because it has come to its end of life, then we call them electronic waste. And I dare say that first, the definition excluded almost or near end of life equipment. But when we started to realize that something probably is functioning, and then you take it from one point or you transfer ownership from one person to another, then it immediately ceases to work because it has come to its life, it's at the end of its life. So it also becomes a problem to the next person. So electronic waste are electronic and electrical equipment that are no longer functional. They no longer respond to power. And for that matter, they cannot be used for the purposes for which they've been designed. So we call them waste. I know the next thing you ask me is that, where do they come from?
Where do they come from?
Ironically, see, when you go and buy a brand new one, you just don't know that one day it will come to its end of life. So electronic and electrical waste material come from two sources. The new things that we use here that age and become useless to us are domestically generated electronic waste. We also have other electronic waste which comes into the country as imports.
Let me hold you there, because you see, one man's waste is another man's brand new gadget. Are we using a global standard of waste, or we have localized it to our mode of waste? Because in other jurisdictions, certain things that they call waste in another part of the world, it's completely brand new and could really decorate a room. So whose standard of waste are we comparing or looking at?
You see, I suspected you were going to go this way. Now, the interesting aspect is that I was choosing my words very carefully. Now, let me give you a next terminology.
Yes.
Used electrical and electronic goods. It is just not only because it's going to decorate your room, because it is also a source of trade that brings foreign exchange into our country. So let's look at it this way. Because these are used electrical and electronic gadgets which are coming into our country, they may not necessarily be waste. There are certain characteristics that we look at in order to classify them as waste. But you have used electrical and electronic gadgets which are coming into our country which are still useful. But there are some, when they come, they are completely useless to us. They become a burden to us. First, they started like, we are trying to bridge the digital divide. That we believe that in Europe, people have developed to some point and the computer has helped them to develop. We also say that let us bring these things in here and help. And some of them were coming in like even aid coming to some people. But the issue has to do with this. Those things that come, if you follow up to them within a year, are they still functional? So some of the things that we find and we define them as waste is that if you plug them to power, do they respond or do they not respond? If it does not respond, it's waste. If you look at it physically and there is a crack, there's a damage to it, it is classified as waste. If the electronic gadget comes and the power cord is been cut, we classify it as waste because you need to make some modification to it. But we are saying that for it not to be classified as waste, it has to be used directly the way you have taken it. Without any modification, it will respond to power and it will function the way it is been designed for. But what do we see?
Okay, my auntie gave me a television, right? That's a flat screen television, but it only catches one channel, right? And so I need to find, somebody who can make the other channels come. So, I mean, is that waste or is that in between waste or?
Probably, let me come in here.
Okay.
You see, just to help my senior colleague, you see, per the definition by OECD, that's Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, they define e-waste as any electronic or electrical equipment that has reached its end of life. I hope you are getting me.
Okay.
Any equipment that has reached its end of life.
So now we need to define what end of life is.
Yeah. I mean, it's a relative. It depends on the person. Probably you have a TV set which is no more functioning. It may be new, all right, but because it's not functioning.
Well, it's not new, but I mean, it's still in good shape. But It's still a flat screen television, but it only catches one channel, and
in that sense, you cannot say it's an e-waste because it's still functioning.
It's still functioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it has reached its end of life, then it's an e-waste.
Okay.
I hope we are getting it.
I get you.
It
I
does
get you.
respond to power,
Yeah.
and you can catch a channel.
So,
Probably the orientation of your antenna or the kind of antenna you are using does not allow it to catch the other stations. But at least it has responded to power, and it has been able to function to get you one station.
So now the difficulty then becomes, how do you regulate the port to make sure that all these things coming in will last more than a year or more than 5 years to be classified as e-useful or e-waste?
That was why I started by saying, I introduced this in that it has also become trade for us. The whole thing started with people from our part of the world that have gone to live in Europe, and they suddenly find out that, yes, you can make some money out of this place. So they bring it in. And when they were bringing them in, the classification was that they are used materials. They did not declare them as waste. So when they are bringing them as used material, I mean, there was no policy that banned used materials from coming into this country. So they were coming, we were using them, but mind you, these are the kind of gadgets that meet the pockets of the people in the street. When you go for the new one, the price is somewhere. When you go for this one, the prices are quite affordable. Now, if you go and buy the affordable one to your house, the following day it spoils. You go, you maintain, you bring it in, it spoils. You end up paying more than like what is the new one. But the issue is that, yes, the only place that these things go through are our ports. The ports have certain defined goods that can go through them. Once these materials were not declared illegal materials, they still come through the port and they become big businesses for us. That is how there wasn't any way in the port that you could regulate these things until certain regulations began to appear on our domestic scene. But on the international arena, we have a convention, an international convention, which is the Basel Convention, that fortunately for us, Ghana is a signatory to. I mean, we have ratified that convention, and by implication, it is an applicable law.
Ghana has signed every single convention there is going, but let me come to the scientist. Once there's a loophole and we brought all these things, and as I said in my intro, we burn them, take the wires out, and some of them have hazardous chemicals in it. Is it enough to cause panic, or we can just leave it for now?
Well, let me come in here. You see, and taking Agbogbloshie as a case study.
Yeah.
What happens at the site at Agbogbloshie is that these electronic gadgets are taken in there. They are mechanically dismantled using hammers, pliers, and what have you. Then they burn the plastic cables. We have a copper embedded in the plastic cables. So they burn the plastic cables purposely to retrieve a copper. That is all that they look for. Now, when you apply excessive heat to any plastic material, then there are a lot of toxins that are released. For instance, you could have a pH That's a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Please bear with me. They are scientific terms. I cannot do anything on them. We have the PHs. Then we have the dioxins, which are very toxic. The dioxins and furans, which are very toxic. We also have we can also have the bisphenols. Now, studies have shown that these contaminants are toxic. They are carcinogenic in that they can cause cancer. Some can also have effects on newborns. There are a lot of diseases which have been documented. A classical case is what we call a cryptorchidism.
Which makes the baby do what?
Well, you see, normally human beings are born, the males, they are born with the testicles settled at the scrotum. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you find the one or the two testicles hidden somewhere. So in medical terms, it's called a undiscerned testis or hidden testis. And a classical cause of this is through e-waste burning. I mean, all these have been documented. So once you apply heat to these plastic materials, then a lot of toxins are released. If you go to the site at Agbogbloshie, they release a lot of poisonous smoke, which takes hours to settle. You know, smoke disperses, it goes everywhere. Yeah. So you could even be out of the zone of the site, but you could be contaminated. And the easiest way for people to get contaminated is through inhalation. That's the easiest way people get contaminated. So even though you may not be involved directly in the e-waste burning or dismantling, once you inhale the air, you become contaminated. And it doesn't restrict only to the human beings. It gets into the food. I mean, if you go to the Agbogbloshie site, they sell food by the roadside, yam, onions, fish, whatever. Human beings unknowingly will buy these. If you don't treat them well, we consume them, and we sort of get some of the toxins into our bodies. If you go to the site also, they also have a cattle ranch. Yeah. All these cattle, ask me, where are they going to end up? On the markets and in our restaurants. We take in this, and if the cattle are contaminated, obviously we also get contaminated. So these are some of the ways that human beings get contaminated. And if you want me to explain further, you see, these compounds are the pHs, we also have a brominated flame retardants. They have certain characteristics. They are lipophilic in that they dissolve well in fats, oils, and lipids. So for human beings, we have what we call adipose tissues. That's the lipid-rich tissues. And because these compounds are lipophilic, they get into our adipose tissues, get retained there, and for women, they are transferred to the placenta for pregnant women, and then eventually to the babies through breastfeeding. So this is how the babies are, become contaminated. It's like a transgenerational effect.
And a great majority of people in Accra depend on Agbogbloshie for food.
Yeah.
And next door to it is this. So then EPA comes in as to, I mean, have you been briefed in this potential hazard?
Okay. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in that area. And let me take a step back. He said, I think he indicated they're looking for the wire. It's not only the wire which is in there, which is of interest to the people who are in the business. We also have the circuit boards. Mm-hmm. The circuit boards have almost 78 precious metals in there, including gold and silver. Now, what is happening is that we also have aluminium, which is in there. And these are all, they have a very high market value, locally and internationally. So the people who are scavenging these things and then probably going through what they're going through in order to get these items are just trying to make survival.
This may be a naive question, but is there any possible the EPA can build a fairness so that the scrap man can come and pay 10 cedis and get the thing burned down controllably?
Yeah, I'm just establishing this so that I can get to that place.
Okay.
Yeah, so what is happening is that rather than, he was talking of just burning the wire, because what is of interest to the people is that the computer contains, there are the circuit boards, the motherboards, then you also have the casings. All these parts have material that can give you money. But what is little known to the people, or our people, is that they're only interested in the wire. So once they burn it, you have the oxidized wire, which even has a low market value. And if you were to take an item and just to take off the sheath from the wire, and then you have unoxidized wire. It has 3 times the market value of the oxidized wire. Now, the interesting thing that you said is that, see, when we realized that this was a problem in Abobulashi, we have engaged the people in Abobulashi very extensively, educating them, sending them through things, and there are even times we have sent some of the executives to a country like Denmark for them to see how other people deal with it. We have tried to and put together a system where you can have a common place where they can be trained to take down these materials, in a manner with some kind of safety.
You've done that training.
We have done training. We have done we've done all kinds of extensive things.
How? What mode? I mean, like you set up a school on the radio.
Oh, we have come. Look, this may be probably my 100th time I'm sitting on radio, on television. We have put them together. We have had a lot of workshops with them. What is happening is that, like, the general waste management in this country is completely attitudinal. What we want is that I want money to go and buy my kenke, and for that matter, what do? I have to make it very fast to go. And there are people in there who are buying these items. So they buy, you have the cash, you go and get whatever you are doing. The people who are pushing the trucks, some of them even go. There are people in the population who lend them money. You see, the business is arranged in some tiers. And then they go there and take like a soft loan. Then they go out there to go and buy those things and come, they sell, and then they add money to it. I mean, if I give you a loan, you pay back with profit, with interest. And there are also people who are there. I know there are some Nigerian people who are in there who are looking for the circuit boards. Others are looking for the aluminium. Others are looking for this.
You see, the truth of the matter is not any of us here, but as a state policy.
Yeah.
If I was to bring in a brand new computer, you would charge me an arm and a leg. If I went to bring junk computer from the rubbish dump from America, you say, oh, this one is useless, so bring it in for free.
No, it's not for free.
What, but you pay less?
I wish probably there was somebody from customs here to look. I don't know the values that
but we seem to charge people more for bringing better things, and then even if it was a car and I brought an accident car, I pay less. If I brought a good, healthy car which didn't demand on the state, I pay more. So we seem to welcome rubbish and then penalize good stuff. So I think eventually we've ended up with too much junk in the system, and that's why somebody will bring a container load of this, because it still makes profitable for him to bring it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. They would have brought new ones.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Previously, you could just go and bring what we call real waste. But this time, clear-cut criteria has been set out. You cannot just go and bring the waste in. You bring the waste in, it stops. We've been stopping them. We've been seizing them. We've been doing all kinds of things. Before you bring them in, there is a criteria you have to follow. And when it comes here, we also follow through a criteria we check.
Let me come to Doctor. Doctor, maybe you haven't shocked us with the real toxic scenario on the ground. So maybe, it's bad. Maybe, we can get away with it. And maybe if you shock us, we would think, oh no, hold on, this is really bad. And maybe that's the scientist's role to, really give us that shocking that, you will eventually die or get deformed babies.
Yeah, you see, let me put it this way. The situation now is of concern, but it's not so scary.
Well, they will continue until it gets
scary. Let me explain further. I see, I think that we are rather having a misunderstanding of the word contamination. You see, there's a difference between contamination and pollution. Contamination basically refers to the mere presence of a chemical in a body. It could be water or it could be fish, with no evidence of causing harm. Then if you have the evidence of causing harm, then we term it as pollution.
Okay.
If you look at the caption in the daily graphic, it said breast milk is becoming contaminated, meaning that we are now seeing some chemicals which are not supposed to be there. You see, breast milk, we all know is God-made. But as of now, I can see that breast milk is not pristine. Because my studies show that...
living within that area, catchment area, or anywhere?
Anywhere. It's not within the catchment area. Anywhere. Breast milk as of today is not pristine. Because of industrialization, you have a lot of things that are going on around. And once you contaminate the environment, the air, the food, eventually it will get into the breast milk. So what I did was that we did a screening. We took samples across the country. We took from Accra, Kumasi, and then Tamale, just like a baseline study. And I looked at these contaminants, which I know are associated with e-waste. So classical examples are the PBDs, that's the polybrominated diphenyl ethers, then the hexabromocyanidins, that's the HBCD.
Let me apologize to my listeners, because normally we speak English here, but today you have to have a doctor in the house, yeah? So you need to bear with me.
Yeah.
Doc, carry on.
Okay, so these are contaminants which are associated with e-waste. So I actually focused on these contaminants to see whether they are really in the breast milk. And my study revealed that these contaminants are really in the breast milk. Oh. Yeah. But as to whether they are causing harm or not, we have not done very detailed study. That I must admit. So they are there, but as to whether they are causing harm, we have not done. But it's well documented that these contaminants could lead to lung disease. It could lead to respiratory disease. For instance, in China, the most studied e-waste region in the world, they have shown that 80% of the workers of the e-waste children suffer from respiratory diseases. They have also recorded mortalities as well as other lesions in the skin of the children. So there are well-documented facts as to the harmful effects of all these activities.
I'll stay with you. If China complains about contaminated breast milk due to industrialization, you can excuse them. But where are industries to make an excuse for contamination of breast milk? I mean, we don't have that much industry, which means ours is due to the pollution.
The e-waste is a classical example. Then bear in mind that in this country, we don't really segregate the waste. We lump all things together and then we dump them at the refuse place. We burn them. And you must also know that these refuse dumps also contain the flame retardants. So once you apply heat to the waste, all these toxins will be released. So it's not only centered at the e-waste center, but the way we also burn our waste will also contribute to this.
How's your relation between you and EPA?
Well, basically we are a research organization, and they have to do more of a policy formulation implementation.
But they have to do it based on what you've told them.
Yeah, so we do our research and we inform them about our findings, and then they have to carry on from that point. So that's a kind of a relationship that exists between the CSR, or of course the investees, and the EPA. We do basically research, they do policy formulation and then implementation.
The doctor has finished his work. So now if our babies are going to get good breast milk, it's all up to you now.
Yeah. Well, let me shock you the most. He's just talked about breast milk. When we did the country assessment of the electronic waste, we just didn't leave it there. We needed to do what we call the flows. That is, how much is coming into the country, how much is internally generated. So when we are talking about this, we should not just think that it is some monster which is only coming from outside. The monster is also within us here. Because if you go to every bank, every ministry, everywhere, computers, televisions, they are used everywhere. When they also grow old, they remain with us here. Now, just look at the cover of this, the plastics. That is where you call the brominated flame retardants. That is where they are. And these are the cancer-inducing agents. They can cause all kinds of things. When you burn them and it goes into the smoke, it does not need a passport to cross over to Cote d'Ivoire or to cross over to Europe. It turns into air. And air, you cannot arrest it and say, this is air which is coming from Ghana. The interesting aspect of it is that, see, if we think that what he's talking about is going to be localized, it's never going to be localized. Because once it turns into the air, you cannot say, let me filter this way. It just floats to anywhere the wind decides to carry it. So irrespective of where you find yourself, you can get the contamination. And as I said, let me shock you the more. When we did this country assessment, we also carried out, there was also some research that was carried out, and they were taking the things from blood. This one was directly from Agobloshi. And we thought that, okay, if that is the case, let's go and take the controls from other parts and find out. Lo and behold, We found the contaminants also in the blood of those people who were thinking were controls. So now, yes.
How far away was the controlled blood group? I mean,
we thought that if we could go, let's say, probably to Pram Pram.
Okay.
Where we know that at least there is no e-waste dumped there, where they're not burning these things. We could find out that somebody at Pram Pram is free. Then we find out that the person who is Pram Pram is also having the contaminants in his blood. So where do we go? Where do we start? Where do we stop? So the issue has to do with this, and I will keep saying it. We will continue to hammer home the point. Yes, we can get these materials and sell them. But the best way to get this material is not to burn. We can physically take them down and still export them the way we like it and get more money out of it. So it is always very painful sometimes when you go and you find them, they are burning, you want to talk to them, they are trying to hound you, they are trying to maltreat you, they are trying to harm you. We've carried police. Some of these places where they do it, look, if you are driving on the motorway to Tema, before you get to the last toll booth there, you look at the left side. It's bizarre.
Probably, let me just add a little to what he said. See, the study that I undertook didn't only focus on breast milk. In fact, I took cow milk samples. Initially, I started with cow milk. I took from some kraals in Accra and then from Asare as control. I've also measured these contaminants in fish, tilapia fish precisely.
Tilapia?
Yes. Yeah.
It's spoiling your day.
Yeah. So, in fact, all
I
are
had
documented.
tilapia yesterday.
And lo and behold, all these contaminants were found in them. They were found in cow milk, they were found in fish, as well as the breast milk that I just talked about. So it's widespread. It's widespread. But
Doc, tilapia is more within the Volta, in the lake, and so how much of these things are we burning for it to infect the lake and then infect the fish?
Yeah, as I said, don't only focus on the e-waste burning. I mean, the normal refuse dumps that you have, they contain them. They are everywhere. And if you know the characteristics of these contaminants, you understand. For instance, they are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. They also undergo what we call long-range atmospheric transport. They get attached to particles and they be carried away. So these are some of the characteristics that they have, and this is why you can find them everywhere. They can travel over a distance through the air. So you say, oh, yeah, the Volta Lake is not beside Agbogbloshie. So you at least expect them to be there.
And it's vast.
Yeah, it's vast, but they are there. In fact, I took from Weja, I took from Volta Lake, I took from Sokakope, and then upstream. I took from Benya Lagoon, as well as Keta Lagoon. They were there. Results have been documented. They are there. But of course, the levels were low. But it doesn't mean that because the levels are low, we should not do anything. It's of concern. As I said, it's not so scary, but it is of concern.
We're going to take a break here, and then when we come back, we need to find out how we are going to either maintain the current low levels or diminish it, which is the way forward. Stay tuned. We're coming straight back. Hello and welcome back to the show. Just to say the Joy News election, petition discussions and everything that we brought to you earlier was brought to you by Star Ghana. I think there are further shows to come which Star Ghana would collaborate with Joy News to do it. Fabrics are sponsored by Woodine, and also the design of presenter's outfit by Tantees in Airport Residential Area. Back to the big question, which is e-waste disposal. But I'll start with the EPA. EPA, I think you've been a bit overwhelmed by this. Maybe you did not arrest it from the beginning, and now you've been overwhelmed.
Let me say, we were rudely woken up from our sleep in 2007. When we got a call, when we got a message from Belgium informing us that 13 containers full of waste was heading towards our country.
13?
13.
Wow.
And they mentioned 2 different ships And they gave us the container numbers and gave us the time of arrival of the containers in our port. We went there, me and some other guys were asked to go and look at them. When we opened, there were computers, and they said, but this is bridging the digital divide. Why are you telling me this is waste? In my country, this one is not waste. Then the agency decided that, look, I think there is something which is happening we weren't in the know. So yes, we woke up just not a too distant past, and we realized that we had some in the country, we had some that were coming in. We decided that no, something needed to be done, at least what we are generating internally. Let us try as much as possible to manage what we are generating internally, but don't go and carry somebody else's load and come and put it on our head. So we started to engage our stakeholders. To be frank, we thought the problem was a small problem. We were taught it was just going to talk to people to understand that this is this, this is that, and when people are patriotic, and then we stop. So we realized that people were bent on making money. People were bent on doing anything. So whichever method you designed, somebody found an antidote to it. Whatever you designed, they found an antidote to it. Until we decided to enlist the support of the environmental agencies that are outside this country. We also engaged the police in our country and outside the country who had intelligence information to provide to us. That if something was coming in as waste, we had prior information to it. Then we'll wait for it at the port. That was how we started. We put up a presence at the port, and we started conducting container searches, inspecting containers together with the customs, national security, BNI, and other stakeholders. We open the containers together. Once it's examined to be waste, then it's taken away from you. Now we try to put up.
First of all, let me come, because the box can be still. The gadget can still be shining and everything, and still be, useless. So how then do you check that? If I brought 30,000 pieces of laptops, maybe 20,000 of them is not working, but they will still be shiny and.
Oh yes, that is good. Before we checked the first time, 25% of the whole container used to be working. 75% of them will not respond to power. Then we started putting in the measures. First, if you are bringing it from a country, we enlisted those countries had laws. They had laws that were banning the exportation of those countries to other developing countries. So if you were living in Europe and you were found to be bringing in those materials to this country, what we needed to do is to gather your import data and everything from this place, carry it back to our sister agencies there, and the people get prosecuted in that country. Now, we also try to put in some regulations, laws and regulations, but ours is taking time to develop. For instance, in 2011, we sent a bill to Parliament. It was there and there and there. In Parliament, they rose, the bill never got passed. Election came, and now we have to reintroduce that bill again. So these are the difficulties that we have, but we didn't just leave it there.
But have you engaged the media so that we can help you in this campaign?
We have done a lot with the media. In fact, they have been very helpful to us. They've been very, very, very helpful. There are a number of them that we have carried to the field. We have done a lot of work with them. Most of the workshops that we were doing, we had a media component that the media also took part. There is also an association of environmental journalists. There is an association of journalists that they are concerned with environmental issues. Mm-hmm. And we have brought them on board. We have dealt with them. We've provided information to them. We've had a lot of interaction with them. They come to us. We sit down for a number of hours. We discuss the issues. And then
because now, apart from computers, we have the fridges, which only have recently been banned. So apart from the computers, and then the old style television with a big back. So apart from the computers that we are talking about, we have the fridges and the televisions, and probably now a few washing machines that I've seen derelict that are all coming. Have we banned everything, or are we just banned, certain segments of things?
I think what is happening is that there is the law that has banned the refrigerators is from the Energy Commission. and I think that was done relatively to on our power consumption patterns. Many of these old ones are heavy power consumers. And when you look at, if you are using one of those fridges in your room, probably half of the power bill, the electricity bill, is coming from that single refrigerator which is sitting in your room. So the Energy Commission thought it wise, together with the stakeholders, they put together it's the LI 1932, which was passed in 2008, and that is the ban on the importation of used refrigeration equipment. But bringing it into force had been very, very intractable.
Let me bring the scientist in here. While the politicians haven't seen any need to stop this thing immediately, and it's here, once it gets in our system, what do I do? Take a bit of paracetamol, aspirin to reduce it, some antibiotics. What do I do?
No, you see, once it gets into the system, there's not much you can do. For instance, let's take the dioxin, as I mentioned, which is a typical endocrine disrupting chemical. You see, what we mean by endocrine disrupting chemical is that there are chemicals that interfere with our hormones. So they get in there and they sort of mimic the hormones, which could cause cancerous tumors and other birth defects. Now, this dioxin per the WHO can stay in the human body between 7 and 11 years. It can be there between 7 and 11 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. So the immediate effect will not be realized. It will be there forever, for that duration. But God, being so good, has designed our body in such a way that there could be self-cleansing. This is what I call metabolism. Mm-hmm. So out of metabolism, you could have some of these chemicals detoxified, and it could be released through the urine, the stool, and what have you.
I mean, vegetable intake, fruit intake, something?
All these things help.
But they're probably all contaminated.
Of course. I mean, but what I'm saying is that is by God's design. Mm-hmm. The system itself cleanses it through the metabolism. We could be exposed, the two of us could be exposed to the same contaminant. You could have lower levels of the contaminant, whereas I will have higher levels, depending on your metabolic capacity. Mm-hmm. Once your metabolic capacity is very high or efficient, it will release some of these toxins from you. So it depends on the person's metabolic capacity. But you should bear in mind that some of these things can stay there for long years. Yeah, as I said about the dioxin, it could be there for 7 to 11 years.
How do we make sure we don't increase these levels that you have found so far?
Then you have to make sure you sort of, it's difficult, but of course, you sort of try to keep away from the source of exposure. For instance, if you are like the boys who are into this e-waste dismantling, of course, they know it's harmful, but they cannot stop because you also have to survive. But if you are really determined, then it means you have to abandon this kind of job. So you have to...
let me go to you. We ban everything. Yeah, we like to ban.
I think it is not just about abandoning the job, because there are the protective equipment that one can put on that will really reduce or will lower the exposure. Because if you decide you are not going to ban, but it's just a physical dismantling, you could wear gloves, you could wear nose masks, you could wear, anything that will prevent the material from getting in contact with you. In that way, you will be, reducing the transmission routes, limiting the transmission routes. The issue has to do with this. We need to bring enforcement to bear on the system of the banning system. We need to make sure that goods that are arriving in this country are goods that will be used for the purposes for which they've been imported, and not goods that will go in order to be bent. And we need to put in a system that we are going to take back these goods and save the community of this kind of malfeasance where people will go and ban them. We've started to put certain things in place, a system, and we're trying to try out some this thing with Zoom Lion in the ministries area. That whoever that, if you're able to put the system like a take-back system, that if you have a used item in your house that you no longer have a use, bring it for, let's say, and we are going to, if you bring a television, we're going to give you, let's say, a voucher that you can go and take a new television. That, and through that you can top it and take the new television. People will bring them out. Or else, just like what the Energy Commission has done. They brought in good fridges that were low energy consuming fridges, And so you bring your high consuming and you get a voucher, you go and top up, and then you go and get a new fridge. That program, they implemented for some time, and it still continues to be implemented. If we could do the same thing for the fridges, I mean, for the TVs, do the same thing for the computers, could do the same thing for the air conditioners, do the same thing for all the other electric materials that can create this kind of problem, then we will be limiting the manner in which we can get these things, people exposed to it. But the baseline is just like that. Education still remains one of the cardinal things that we need to employ.
I think Doc wants to come in here.
I just wanted to keep in one intervention, which I know is being done in China. Now in China, it's illegal to do open burning. It's illegal.
I see.
They have introduced what we call a wire stripping. I don't know if we have done that in Ghana. Maybe Lambert.
Yeah, we have done some education on it. We have demonstrated it to the people.
Okay.
But the issue with the wire stripping is that people think it's a waste of time to go and take the wire and use like a knife to take off the wire sheathing and bring out only the wire and heap it and then sell. They think it's a waste of time. They believe it's a waste of time and they just carry it straight. The fire is on it. They stand by. It finishes burning. They go and pick it and go.
I think we have to enforce that because that is being done in China now. They are doing the wire stripping.
Yeah, the Chinese have been able to put in the regulations. That is what we are working on to get passed by Parliament. But what I'm saying is that we still need to,
educate.
Do the education component. It's very essential. It's very essential. If in an attempt to get the food, to get the money to go and buy the food, then you get the money and you can't buy the food and you're going to be buying medicine, then it's not worth. It's a venture in vain. So we need to understand that we can get the money.
How hazardous is that Kantamanto area? Because it looks like it's gotten to a stage where human beings should not tread on it. From what I hear, if these contaminants have traveled all the way to the Volta River, then those living within that area and even the market, maybe EPA, you should move the market from there.
No, you see, previously the situation used to be bad. It's no longer like that this time.
Oh, but these, all these big things Doctor said, they live around for years.
Yeah. Oh, what I'm saying is that what he's talking about may be things that have been done probably for the past 3 years, which have been picked up. But what I'm saying is that the level of burning that used to take place in Abubulushi no longer happens.
No,
there is a significant transformation.
Should we situate a market in Abubulushi where we go and buy our food? And this is a scientist. Let's listen to what the scientist said.
Probably let me give a background to the place. You see, the site started as a food staff market. They were into onions, the yams, and then gradually the scrap dealers came in. So when they realized that the place was becoming lucrative, they really registered with the National Youth Council. These are reports by Osei. So they registered with the National Youth Council in 1994. And from there on, this e-waste activity started. So that was how the whole thing took off. And it has been going on for now. I think we have not done much to stop or to curtail the burn activities. So as I said, it is now time to put a halt to it. And for me, the Chinese example should be...
No, as a scientist, if you're advising us, should we still keep the market there since we all buy our food from there, or should that market move?
This would take a very political way to do that.
No problem. I just want the scientific advice that no, it's not healthy, or no, it's
definitely
safe to eat.
The food has become contaminated. If you look at the amount of smoke,
EPA,
that is
definitely the food in Kantamanto is contaminated.
What Doc needs to understand is I think he should go there to find out, because the picture he's trying to paint is that it looks like Abubulushi is just full of smoke. Go to Abubulushi
he's
now.
Not talking about the snow. He's talking about the contaminants.
No, but he just mentioned smoke.
That's one part. That's one part.
They are still burning.
And I'm saying that the level of burning that used to take place at that place, if you had known, relative to what probably you find now, you will appreciate what it is.
Dioxins, I have learned, doesn't need that much burning.
Yeah. Which one?
Once you burn.
Once you burn, you burn. You don't need to have to burn the whole country. Once you burn, you burn. And there's cabbage and carrots and potatoes and cassava, which we all eat.
Me and Doc knows very well that if you keep burning huge volumes, you have the concentrations of these things coming out in huge volumes, greater numbers. You burn less, you have it coming out in less quantities.
So should we still keep the market there? Or should we move the market?
This is a very difficult question.
Who's going to go, the market or the burners?
Because
we can't stay side by side if we're going to eat.
Why do you think they can stay side by side? It is just getting them to do the right thing.
No, but at the moment they're not doing the right thing. So who are you moving? Those who are burning or those who are selling the food? But somebody has to move.
That's what I'm saying. It's still a difficult question.
EPA,
It's still a difficult question.
EPA, you need to help us out as a nation.
Honestly
because
speaking, we are doing whatever that is humanly possible to get these people to do the right thing.
Well,
and we have moved a lot.
Well, gentlemen, you need to move them all. And,
we moved a lot.
We're talking about the Poisoning Ghana e-waste disposal. And to my extreme left is Lambert Fabelon. Who's the Director, Manufacturing Industry Department at EPA. And to my immediate left is Dr. Kwejo Ansong Asante, who was allowed not to speak other language other than English on the show. He was allowed. He's a senior scientist from CSIR, and he's educated us, and we should all be really careful in terms of what we burn and how we dispose of our things, because gradually we think it's the easy way of disposing, but we're killing ourselves gradually, and we should all urge EPA to either get the burners out or the food sellers out, but they cannot live side by side. This has been PM Express, and thanks for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.